Wouldn't it be nice to practice taking care of each other in our old age by doing household chores? And also practice for when you have kids by looking after them. It's a win-win, right?
Susie, my mother-in-law glares at me as if to say, "What's your problem?" In the background, my sister-in-law's husband and my father-in-law Raymond are already assembling a crib without asking. Right before my eyes, preparations for moving in together are rapidly underway. My husband, looking amused, meets my stern gaze. My name is Miranda. I live with my husband, Michael. We met through work and started dating. I was always busy with work, so I didn't have any other opportunities to meet people. Michael told me he liked me from the moment we met, but I initially thought of him as just a business contact. So when he first asked me out, I was genuinely surprised. Although I wasn't initially interested in Michael, I was in my late 20s, and with a little push from friends, I decided to give dating him a try. Both of us had little experience in love, so it was an awkward date. But spending time with Michael was genuinely enjoyable. Fast forward about 3 years, and Michael and I decided to get married. We were both quite successful for being just shy of 30, and with our combined income, we bought a spacious house on a mortgage. My dream was to raise a family and have a dog here with Michael. I thought Michael felt the same way, at least that's what I thought when we first moved into the house. But about 6 months after getting married, I realized Michael no longer shared that dream. My sister-in-law Elsie got pregnant. Elsie lived nearby and would occasionally visit, but her visits increased significantly after her pregnancy. She would often show up unannounced, and I was even shocked to find her sitting at our front door after a shopping trip. When I found her, she angrily said, "How could you leave a pregnant woman waiting outside?" But I had no idea she was coming. I was already juggling a hectic life, balancing work and household chores, and adding Elsie to the mix made it unbearable. She would show up early in the morning saying, "Our washing machine is acting up, so I thought I'd bring my laundry for you to do," or come over at home with her husband and say, "We're hungry, feed us." I was at my wit's end with Elsie and consulted Michael, but he just said, "What's the big deal? Elsie is my sister and she's your sister-in-law. It's natural for her to visit." He took no action. I realized nothing would change unless I took action, so I finally told Elsie, "This is becoming a problem." I asked her to stop burdening me with chores in the early morning and to quit timing her dinner visits for when I get off work. Then Elsie left in tears, and who shows up but Raymond and Susie. We live near my in-laws because Michael suggested it would be convenient for when we have kids. That decision backfired as Raymond and Susie came over for what seemed like retaliation for how Elsie was treated. I was made to sit on the floor and was berated for being a terrible woman. I already knew these two didn't like me much. They were kind to me before we got married, but their attitude changed when I said I would continue working after marriage. They held old-fashioned views that a woman should stay home after marriage. They also cared a lot about appearances and lectured me multiple times about how my working might make people think Michael doesn't earn enough. I didn't quit my job, so they started disliking me. I had reservations about building a house near them, but they're important to Michael. I thought their attitude might soften when they have grandchildren, so I went ahead with it. Big mistake. They scolded me for over an hour, saying it was terrible not to help Elsie, who's pregnant. "What if something happens to the baby?" they said, and then demanded drinks when they were tired from their lecture. Even the coffee I made was criticized as being bad and bitter after they left. I was so frustrated that I cried. I even told Michael, "If Raymond and Susie are going to be involved, I want a divorce." Michael was shocked by the word divorce, but seeing me cry, he comforted me saying, "I didn't know you were feeling so cornered." He promised to talk to his parents, and a week later, Elsie's baby was born. It was a cute girl, and both Michael and I melted when we saw the pictures. A week later, when I was idly thinking about wanting a child with Michael, Elsie showed up at our house, and she didn't come alone. She brought her husband, Raymond, and Susie, cheerfully announcing, "We're here." As I stood confused, Elsie's husband walked in carrying large bags and said, "We'll be counting on you from today." What? I was confused, but Elsie's husband and Raymond were carrying a lot of luggage into our house from the car they had parked in front of our house. What What's going on? When I asked Susie, who was sorting through the items in the entranceway, what was going on, she snapped at me.
Why don't you help out? You're so clueless.
Still not understanding, I went to the living room followed by Raymond and Elsie's husband carrying something large. Elsie directed them to place it near the living room window. What they pulled out of the box was a crib. Michael, what's going on? What is this?
It's a surprise.
A surprise?
Look, Miranda, you've been having a hard time with Dad and Mom, right? I thought if we all lived together, you would see how great they are and get along.
What are you talking about? I frowned at Michael's behavior. Michael was still smiling, thinking he had done something good for me. As I took a deep breath to complain, Elsie, holding her baby, glared at me and said,
What's your problem? We're family. There's no issue with us living together.
So as family, Elsie will help with the household chores like I do?
Of course not. I have a baby to take care of and I just gave birth a week ago. You really need to think before you speak. That's right. Besides, this living arrangement is also for your own benefit, Miranda.
Before Susie knew it, she had wandered into the living room and seemed to have heard what Elsie was saying. Agreeing to Elsie's baffling remarks, Susie started to say even more incomprehensible things.
Miranda, we'll have to take care of each other in our old age, and if a child comes along, we'll naturally have to raise it. That's why we agreed to Michael's suggestion to live together as practice for all that.
What?
So we'll practice taking care of the house for our future and also practice childcare for when you have kids. Isn't that great?
No matter how many times I heard it, the response would likely be the same. I was stunned for a moment, then shot Michael the root cause of this mess a piercing glare. Michael just smiled and said,
Miranda must be happy too, right?
I felt a chill thinking that this man might not understand his wife's feelings or anyone else's. For that matter, he must have noticed my displeasure. Suddenly, Michael's mood soured, realizing his surprise had failed.
What's the matter? You don't like it? Well, Dad, Mom, and Elsie have all decided to live here. If you don't like it, you can leave.
I couldn't take it anymore. I quietly headed to the bedroom and grabbed the divorce papers I had hidden in the bedside drawer. I had prepared these papers when I previously discussed issues with Michael. I never thought I would actually use them, but their time has come. I returned to the living room and handed Michael the divorce papers. I'm leaving. I calmly made my declaration and began to prepare to leave, pulling out a large suitcase I had stored in the closet. At first, Michael was saying things like,
Why? I did this for you, Miranda.
But when he saw I was ignoring him, he filled in the blanks on the divorce papers and handed them back to me without a word. I took them silently and put them in my bag. While I was packing, Raymond, Susie, and Elsie mocked me, saying,
Did Michael dump you?
But the truth is, I'm the one who's leaving him. The ones who would be in trouble once I left were definitely Michael and his family. Convinced of this, I packed everything I needed into my suitcase and took refuge at a friend's house for a while. I couldn't impose on my friend forever, so I immediately started looking for a new place to live. I found a promising place near my work, and it took about a month to move out. During that time, there was no contact from Michael. I didn't care, as it was only natural since we were divorced. But just as I had finished moving, I got a call from Michael. When I picked up the phone, thinking Michael might have forgotten something, he blurted out,
Help me.
According to Michael, things at his home had gone from bad to worse. The constant crying of a baby had left everyone sleep-deprived, and fights were breaking out due to the tension. Michael and his family all disliked and were bad at housework, leading to more arguments about who should do what. As a result, chores piled up, garbage and dirty dishes accumulated, and flies began to infest the house. Moreover, Michael admitted he hadn't thought about finances and was now in a tight spot.
I can pay off the mortgage on my own.
The only ones working in Michael's household were Michael and Elsie's husband. But soon after moving in, Elsie and her husband had a huge fight, leading to their divorce and departure. Just like us, as a result, Michael was left to pay the mortgage originally intended to be split between the two of us. Supporting Raymond, Susie, Elsie, and Elsie's baby while paying off the mortgage would be tough. I was surprised to hear about Elsie's husband leaving, but I had always known Michael would eventually struggle with the mortgage. Still, I couldn't forgive Michael for unilaterally deciding to live together and telling me to leave if I didn't like it.
Where are you now? Things are really bad here. Dad and Mom are getting sick and Elsie isn't helping with anything. She even takes money from my wallet.
Do you think calling me back will solve your problems? I don't understand why you think my return would fix anything. You're not just trying to use me as a housekeeper to lighten your load, are you? When I said this sarcastically, Michael fell silent. I wanted to live happily with you in that house. You're the one who ruined it. I don't need to see it to know you're struggling. With parents and a sister like that, it must be tough. But you chose this, so you'll have to deal with it.
Dad, Mom, and Elsie are more than just selfish.
It's fine. You said it yourself. Living together might make everyone get along. Michael had decided to move in together as a surprise to make me, Raymond, Susie, and Elsie get along. When I reminded him of this, he hesitated and said, "Well, anyway, we're divorced now, so it's none of my business. Good luck with the housework for your future caregiving and the childcare practice for when you have a new wife and kids." With that, I hung up and blocked Michael's number. I later heard about what happened to Michael and his family from a friend who had supported me during our marriage and provided a refuge during our divorce. This friend worked with Michael and had grown up in the same town, so they were in the loop. Michael continued to live in the house we had built, but the neighbors had a poor opinion of him. The constant crying of the baby and the insect-infested garbage-filled house had earned him their disdain. Raymond and Susie were in poor health, frequently going in and out of the hospital. Michael was taking care of them while also raising Elsie's child. Elsie apparently found a new boyfriend and left the house, neglecting her own child in the process. When she returned, she was pregnant and it turned out her new lover was already married. Even Michael couldn't contain his anger at Elsie and kicked her out of the house. Elsie, who had been financially supporting her new boyfriend, was now in debt and working a demanding job that provided lodging just to make ends meet. While I was shocked at how far Michael's household had fallen, it felt like poetic justice. As for me, I also found a new love. But my boyfriend is a single man, not a married one. He's gentle and kind, and his occasional endearing blunders make him all the more lovable. He doesn't mind that I've been divorced and is willing to consider marriage at a pace that suits me, given my previous fears about it. So we decided to live together first and are now cohabiting in a new apartment. His parents are incredibly kind and have already decided to move into a care facility when they're older, so as not to be a burden on us. Our wish is not to trouble our children. If you and Miranda focus on your own happiness, that's all we could ask for," said my new mother-in-law, Sandra. Her words were so wonderful, I wished I could share them with Michael and his family. Recently, my boyfriend proposed to me and we plan to get married in a few months. This time, I truly believe this marriage will lead to my happiness.